Hello everyone and welcome to some very important news from the chess world. We know 4 of the candidates for the FIDE Candidates Tournament 2024. They are from the Chess World Cup, Fabiano, Caruana, Pragnananda and Nijat Abbasov. Also will be joined by the former World Chess Championship match runner-up, that is Yanni Pomnishi, who lost to Ding Liren. And now they are being joined by none other than Hikaru Nakamura. This is his yesterday's game. Sorry about not showing it right away. I had to leave the country for a day. And now he drew his game against Arjun Ergaisi in the final round, which means he definitely qualifies for the FIDE Candidates Tournament. Now let's check it out if you still haven't seen it. It's quite a masterful performance. Let's check it out. Penultimate round, Hikaru versus Fabi, and he opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to e5, knight f3, knight to f6, and now knight to c3. Hikaru could go for the main line with knight captures on e5 of the Petrov, even d4, maybe knight to c3, knight to c3, but he goes for the 3 knights game. We have knight to c6, Fabi goes for the 4 knights defense, or the 4 knights game, and now pawn to d4, striking in the center, the so-called Scotch variation. E captures, we have knight captures, and now bishop to b4. This is the main line, knight captures, b captures, and now bishop to d3. Again, completely in the main line, pawn to d5, e captures, and both players now castles. So castles and castles. You could go after the c6 pawn, but it's nothing impressive. So instead, white just castles, and black recaptures with c captures on d5. And now, how do you continue? The top move here is still bishop to g5, but Hikaru waits with it. He plays pawn to h3, and now bishop to e6. Okay, just continuing development. We have queen to f3, and now pawn to c5, grabbing more space in the center. We have rook to d1, nicely aligning the rook with that queen on d8, could become very useful. And Fabi decides to give up the bishop pair with bishop captures on c3, which is a bold move. Yes, you mess up Hikaru's pawn structure, but you do give him the bishop pair. So b captures, and now queen to a5, putting pressure on the c3 pawn. You're not really attacking it, because imagine if you played queen captures on c3, then bishop captures on h7 check, and you lose your queen, but it could become very relevant. So bishop to g5, threatening to mess up the pawn structure by playing bishop captures on f6, and Fabi goes knight to e4. Sort of offers a knight with the pawn, but then again, if queen captures, then you will be able to capture on c3. So bishop captures, d captures, but now just queen to g3, being very annoying here. You have to worry about bishop to h6 or bishop to f6, putting pressure on that g7 pawn. So Fabi simply moves the king to h8. Now, if of course you try something like this, Fabi just captures the bishop. And now there is a game that was played in the Aeroflot Open in 2016 between Maxim Lugovsky and David Gevorgian, where rook to d6 was played right away. But here we have pawn to a4, and it is now as of move 17 that we have a completely new game, as one would expect from such incredible players like Hikaru and Fabi. Rook f to e8, and now rook to d6. Going for the rook lift, maybe preparing to double up on the d file. Pawn to h6, challenging the bishop, and bishop to f4. We have rook to e7. The rook nicely controls the 7th rank, and also, if needed, maybe as the g7 pawn might become a problem, you might play something like f6 or f5 to help out with the defense. Queen to e3, now putting some pressure on c5, but really putting all the pressure on the h6 pawn, and Fabi says, bring it on. He accepts the challenge. He plays rook to c8. And now it's a very interesting position where, of course, you know that something must be up. Feel free to pause the video and figure out what you would do here while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding this very nice maneuver. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop to e5. This is sort of objectively strongest, but it was not played in the game. The reason why it's so strong is because queen captures on h6 is the threat. Now the g7 pawn is pinned. And if you try to unpin with king to g8, then comes queen g3. threatening checkmate, and once you stop this, here comes queen h4, threatening the rook, and once you move the rook, then queen f6 will again checkmate the black king. So what you will have to do after bishop to e5 is actually play king to h7, give up this pawn with check, and now after something like f5, you will play queen to h4. Again, as the rook on e7 is defended, this is what you use in all of the lines to make your tactics work. And now once the rook is defended, you will play queen to g3. You will defend the pawn, so you don't have to worry about that. You will have constant pressure on that g7 pawn. The bishop cannot move. You have pressure on g6. You're up material. This is just, well, objectively completely winning for white. But Hikaru went for bishop captures on h6 right away, which is still completely winning unless Fabi finds this sort of an engine miracle defense that he doesn't. He has to play rook to d7 here, but instead he plays pawn to f6. Now, what happens if you capture? Well, if you capture, then just queen captures on h6 with check, king to g8, and now queen to g5 with check. King goes to f8, and now queen f6, and this is a problem. This will be checkmate, and if you try to move the king to g8, then you hang the rook on e7, and if you try to move the rook to sort of make room for the king on e7, then you run into rook captures on e6. The pawn is pinned, cannot capture. If rook captures, then of course queen h8 check, you pick up the rook on c8, you're up 2 pawns, you're completely winning. Okay, maybe black could pick up this pawn and you're only down 1 pawn, but then rook d1, you're checkmating the black king, and there's no real good way to escape. If you play king f6, then queen to h8 check, picks up the queen on c3, and what else is there? If you try to make room for the king on e6, maybe with something like rook to d6, then queen to c7 check, picks up the rook, there's really no way out of this. So instead, after bishop captures on h6, Fabi tried pawn to f6, that's why the rook was placed on e7 to add more protection here, but now comes queen captures on e4, now attacking the bishop on e6, so queen captures on c3, attacking Hikaru's rook on a1, and now rook a to d1. We have rook c to e8, and now rook to d8, putting pressure on the 8th rank, so bishop to g8, and now we have queen to h4, threatening all sorts of nasty discoveries here. Queen captures on c2. Now, if the bishop moves, you can just bring the queen back to h7 to help out with the defense. But now rook 1 to d3, cutting off the queen's reach to the h7 square. So bishop to h7, now you don't have to worry about any discoveries here. And now rook 3 all the way to d7. Look at this beautiful move by Hikaru. Point is that, let's say a trade on d8 happens, you will play rook captures on d8 check. And once the bishop moves, now comes bishop captures on g7 with check. The only square you have for your king is to actually capture the bishop, and now just queen g3 check. The king will have to move. You will play rook captures on g8, and yes, okay, you're only down 1 pawn, but something like rook g4 followed by rook to h4 checkmates the black king. You will either suffer checkmate or again severe material loss. So after rook 3 to d7, pawn to g5 was played by Fabi. But now queen to g3. We have queen to b1 with check, king to h2, and queen to f5, but now rook captures on e7. We have rook captures on d8, and queen to c7. Putting pressure on the rook here. So queen to f4 with check forces a queen trade, but it doesn't help Fabi. Hikaru just trades, captures, and now bishop to g7 with check. And the problem is not that Hikaru is winning a pawn, because it's an endgame of bishops of opposite colors. The problem is that after this, that after bishop captures on f6, now the threat is rook captures on h7, followed by just bishop captures on d8. So Fabi has to deal with this. He moves the bishop all the way to b1, but now rook to g7 check, king to f8, and now Hikaru could go for the second pawn with rook captures on a7, but he says no, we can go into bishops of opposite color. He trades the rooks, captures, and now just bishop to g5. He says, what do you do with the pawn on the dark square? Fabi says, of course I cannot save it, I only have a light square bishop, but I can at least mess up your pawn structure. Hikaru says, nope, you cannot even do that. He plays pawn to g4, pawn to c4, Fabi starts advancing his passed pawn, but now king to g3. We have bishop to e4, and now bishop to d2. With this move, move 40 has been reached, so time control has been reached, and he was in this position on move 40 that Fabiano Caruana resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. For those of you who like it when I show why and I finish the games, well, it's just that you have 2 connected passed pawns on the king side, and it doesn't matter that it's endgame of bishops of opposite color and that black is down only one pawn, the two connected passers on the king side are too decisive. To give an example, let's say you play something like king f6, king will come here, you will move the bishop somewhere, bishop to c3 check, and now you start making progress here on the king side. You will start, okay, pawn to a5, you don't want to blunder a pawn, king to f7, pawn to h4, you will move somewhere with the king, king to g5, you'll play pawn to h5 check. Of course, you want your pawns on light squares as you have a dark square bishop, so you can use it in between. King h6, maybe, okay, now you have to move the king back to bring the king here and start advancing the pawns. If black prevents this, then you kick the king away, king to f6, and now you bring it back, and now you have won the g5 square. So king g7, g5 is coming, king to f7, again g6 pawns on light squares as you have a dark square bishop, king g7, king to g5 check, king to g5, and after you play something, now comes pawn to h6, and that's all there is. Now black will of course try to stop your passed pawns, but now if you move, then white gets a queen, and if you go to the corner, then bishop to c3 will result in checkmate. So this is why it's so pointless to continue this. Of course, Fabi knows this, and after bishop to d2, he resigned the game. So yeah, very nicely played by Hikaru. And like I said, we have the World Chess Championship runner-up in the candidates now, Yanni Pomnishi. We have the top 3 finishers of the Chess World Cup, Fabiano Caruana, Nijat Abasov, and Pragnananda, and they are now joined by Hikaru Nakamura. And yeah, this wasn't maybe as intense for Fabi, since he already reached 2800 in the tournament for who knows which time, and he already qualified for the FIDE Candidates tournament, so it wasn't, you know, really hanging in the balance for him. He of course wanted to win the tournament, but for Hikaru it did mean a lot. But also very interesting, as Hikaru was sort of in the race with Alireza Firouzja as who will get the spot in the FIDE Candidates tournament by via highest rating. Now that Hikaru qualified via this event, now Alireza will most likely be eligible to qualify via rating if maybe Anish Giri doesn't catch up to him. But we'll see. A couple of more spots to be decided. Let me just check if we have the other, because there was still, yeah. So we do now know the top 2 finishers of the FIDE Grand Swiss, as the game finished while I was recording this video. Of course, the other one is Virid Gujarati. He is the other candidate qualified via the FIDE Grand Swiss, and he won a very, very nice game. While I was still watching it, it was still a draw, but he was able to take down Alexander Predke. It was a very fierce game, so that will be the other game that I will show you after this one. So there are a few more spots in the candidates. One will be decided via the highest rating for January 2024, so there's still you know, quite a lot can change, as there are some who could qualify. Let me just refresh this. So Alireza Firouzja is currently 2762 on the live ratings list, and Anish Giri is 2754. So he's down by 8 points, but yeah, we'll see. A lot can still happen. Wesley So is 2752, Karyakin 2750, Anand even 2748, and so on and so on. So we'll see who gets that. And also there is the one spot will be decided via the winner of the FIDE Circuit 2023. So yeah, very nicely done by Hikaru, taking down a sort of Fabi was 2800 in the live ratings going into this game, but now that Hikaru defeated him, he again took him down from his 2800 throne. So for the moment, Magnus is still the only 2800 player in the world. But yeah, brilliant game by Hikaru, even though he didn't go for that sort of top move by the engine here. Bishop to e5, bishop captures, and h6 was sufficient, you know, for taking down a human. So yeah, once again, really hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for next game. Will be Virit versus Predke. I would like to thank Romain Manini, Sam's Giant Tortoise Farm, Marvin Sparrow, Gerhard Henkelman, and Perforza Love Marie for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you know, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And once again, sorry for no videos yesterday. I really had to leave the country, but if you have any favorite games from the penultimate round, do use #suggestion, and I will do my best to cover it on Monday. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.